Hello everyone, today we will present about earning per share or EPS based on PSAK 233 and BIS 33. So this presentation is prepared by Group 2 consisting of I am Jivan and my friend Hernando Vincent. So before we go into detail, let's take a look at the structure of our presentation. So we will cover four main points, which is the first one is objective and scope, which is in this part we explain the purpose of AIS 33 and which companies must follow it. The second one is measurement, which is in this part we cover how EPS is calculated. The third one is presentation. In this part we will discuss how EPS is shown in financial statement. And the last one is disclosure. In this part we will explain the required disclosure about EPS. So EPS is an important financial metric because it helps investors understand a company's profitability per share. So let's start with the first point, which is the objective and scope. EPS or earning per share is a key financial metric used to measure the portion of company's profit allocated to its ordinary shareholder. So AIS 33 provides guideline on the first one is how EPS should be accounted for. The second one is when diluted EPS should be presented. And the last one is what information must be disclosed. EPS is widely used by investors and analysts to compare the financial performance of different companies. Since earning can be distributed to multiple types of shareholder, IAS 33 ensure that EPS is calculated fairly and consistently. So EPS calculation can be complex, so the ISSB provide illustrated example to assess companies. However, these examples are not officially part of the standard, so we don't discuss deeper about the example. Next, before we go deeper, let's understand the two main types of shareholder in EPS calculation. So the first one is ordinary shareholder, which is they invest in a company by purchasing shares to earn dividends and for capital growth. Their dividend vary each year based on company profits and available cash reserve. The second one is preference shareholder. They have more rights than ordinary shareholder and they receive fixed dividend annually and can cumulate it. And also when in case of liquidation they are prioritized. So since EPS focus on earning available to ordinary shareholder, preference dividend must be deducted from net profit before calculating EPS. This ensures that EPS accuracy reflects the earning available to common investor. Now, let's focus more on ordinary shares, as they are the key element in EPS calculation. Ordinary shares, also called common shares, are a type of equity that rank before our other classes. Shareholder with ordinary shares receive the company's residual earning after deducting all expense and paying dividend to preference shareholder. So IAS 33 applies to financial statement of the first one is company with ordinary share or potential ordinary shares trade in a public market. The second one is companies in the process of going public and filing financial statement with Security Commission. EPS is crucial for these companies because it helps investors evaluate profitability. A higher EPS generally indicates better profitability, making the company more interesting or more attractive in the point of view of investor. The next, EPS is not required for our companies. So, when should it be reported? EPS is required if the first one is the company has a large number of public shareholders. The second is the company files financial statement with a securities regulator. The third one is the company prepares consolidated financial statement along non-consolidated statement. This requirement help ensure that EPS is disclosed only when it is relevant for investor. For private companies with a limited number of shareholders, EPS may not be as important. Finally, let's discuss the basic component of EPS calculation. IAS 33 or PSAK 233 was developed to standardize EPS calculation methods. It consists of two key components, which is numerator and the other set is denominator. Numerator or earning is the net profit available to ordinary shareholder after deducting preference dividend. Other side is the denominator or number of share weighted average number of ordinary share outstanding during the period. So the EPS is calculated using this formula, which is the EPS equal net profit minus preference dividend divided with the weighted average number of ordinary shares. Now that we understand how EPS is calculated, let's discuss why it is important. So EPS is crucial for investor and analysts because the first one is shares are often valued based on a multiple of earning, known as the price to earning or PE ratio. A higher EPS generally leads to a higher share price as it reflects strong profitability. The second one is company aim to maximize earning to increase the EPS, which in turn can boost investor confidence and attract more investment. EPS is not just a number. It influences stock price, investment decision, and even executive bonus in some companies. That's why it is a key financial metric in corporate reporting. So next, IAS 33 required company to report two types of EPS. The first one is basic EPS or BEPS and diluted EPS, DEPS. So BEPS is based on existing earning and the current number of ordinary shares outstanding, while the diluted EPS or DEPS is a what if calculation that show what EPS would be if our potential ordinary shares such as stock option, stock warrant, convertible debt, or convertible preference were converted into ordinary share. So they use what if assumption. Investors look at both BEPS and DEPS because the EPS provides a more conservative estimate, showing how EPS would be diluted if all possible shares were issued. This helps investors assess the true value of this investment. Now, let's break down how basic EPS is calculated. BEPS is calculated as follows. So we have some point, which is the first one is the numerator is profit or loss attributed to ordinary shareholder. The denominator is the weighted average number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period. And EPS should also be calculated for income from continuing operation if applicable. And for the earning or numerator includes profit or loss from continuing operation if separately presented, and the total profit or loss for the period. It's important to use the weighted average number of shares because companies issue and buy back shares throughout the year. If we just use the number at the year end, it will give a misleading EPS. Next, now let's talk about some necessary adjustment to earning before calculating EPS. There are two separate calculations when profit or loss from continuing operation is presented separately in the income statement. So adjustment may be needed for dividends on preferred shares. Why? The first one is only declared dividend on non-cumulative preferred shares are deducted. Since these dividends are not an obligation unless declared, they do not automatically reduce earning. Second is for cumulative preferred share dividend, whether declared or not, must be deducted. These are obligations that must be accounted for as they accumulate even if the company doesn't declare them. Gain or losses from settlement, repurchase, or early conversion of preferred share must also be considered. Any related gain or losses are added to or deducted from earning in the EPS calculation. Understanding this adjustment is important because they ensure EPS reflect the correct earning available to ordinary shareholders. Next, now let's focus on denominator, the number of shares. So we have some point, which is the first point is EPS use the weighted average number of ordinary shares outstanding during the period. The second one is this provide a better indicator of earning based on the average equity available throughout the year. The third is the calculation track the daily change in the number of shares outstanding. Although in practice, a reasonable approximation of the weighted average might be used. And the next is the shares are assumed to be issued on the date when the consideration is receivable. However, some situations require further clarification, such as stock split or right issue. In short, we don't just take the number of shares at year end. We calculate an average to make EPS more accurate. So that's it for this section. The next section will be presented by Hernando Vincent.
Okay, next we will discuss the concept of measurement in share issuance. Okay, first, when shares are issued on the conversion of debt, when shares are issued as a result of debt conversion, they are assumed to be issued on the debt when interest stops occurring. And next, when shares are issued upon rendering of services. If shares are issued in exchange for services, they are assumed to be issued gradually as the services are rendered. Okay, third, when shares are issued in a business combination. In the context of a merger or acquisition, when shares are issued in a business combination, they are assumed to be issued on the acquisition date. By understanding these measurement principles, we can ensure that share issuance are recorded accurately according to the specific circumstance. Okay, the next slide. Now, let's talk about diluted earnings per share or diluted EPS. Diluted EPS is calculated by adjusting both earnings and the number of shares to reflect the impact of dilutive options and other potential ordinary shares that could be converted in the future. Okay, there are different types of dilutive securities, including convertible debt, debt that can be converted into shares, but potentially increasing the total number of outstanding shares. Second, convertible preference shares. Preference shares that can be converted into ordinary shares, which may reduce the EPS for existing shareholders. Okay, the last one, stock option and warrants. This give the holder to the holder the right to purchase shares at a set price, potentially increasing the total number of shares and affecting EPS calculation. Understanding diluted EPS is crucial because it's provide a more conservative measure of a company's earning per share, considering all potential shares that might be issued. Okay, the next slide. Continue with diluted earnings per share or EPS. Let's explore how it reflects earning available to shareholders. Diluted EPS assumes that all potential common shares have already been issued, providing a more comprehensive picture of earning distribution. It shows earning available to first ordinary shareholders, under the assumption that all potential common shares have been converted and issued. Outstanding ordinary share, including shares currently in circulation and those that could be issued due to dilutive securities. And to calculate diluted EPS, both the numerator or earnings and the denominator or number of shares are adjusted based on a what-if assumption, considering the impact of possible conversions. This approach ensures a more conservative estimate of earnings per share, helping investors understand the potential uh, effects of share dilution. Okay, the next slide. Now, let's examine how earnings are treated in the calculation of diluted earnings per share, or the EPS. Okay, the key is no adjustment is made to the numerator or earnings for options and warrants. Okay, the second, when calculating the EPS, we assume one of two scenarios. The scenarios first, funds received from exercise options or warrants are used to repurchase shares rather than being reinvested. Two, new shares are issued to generate enough cash to buy back the shares under option. This ensures that the impact of potential dilution is properly accounted for, reflecting a more realistic earnings per share value. Okay, now let's look at how shares are factored into the calculation of diluted earnings per share, or DPS. Okay, the key consideration, we begin with the weighted average number of ordinary shares as calculated for basic earnings per share, or BEPS. This number is then adjusted for any additional shares that will be issued upon the conversion or exercise of potential ordinary share. Potential ordinary shares are assumed to be issued at the beginning of the year unless they are issued later in the period. If conversion of or exercise option lapse, the number of shares is prorated for the part of the year they were outstanding. Dilutive weighted average common shares are calculated separately for interim and annual reporting periods. By making this adjustment, we ensure that the diluted EPS calculation accurately reflects the potential impact of additional shares on earning. Okay, now let's discuss how convertible instruments impact the calculation of diluted earning per share, or the EPS. Okay, convertible instruments are only included in the EPS calculation when they are dilutive, meaning they reduce the EPS value. And the convertible preferred share. These are assumed to be anti-dilutive if the related dividend per ordinary share is higher than basic earning per share, or BEPS. And the convertible debt, this is considered anti-dilutive whenever the after-tax interest per ordinary share exceeds BEPS. In simple terms, if the conversion of these instruments result in a higher EPS, they are excluded from dilution calculations to avoid misleading financial reporting. Okay, now let's look at how earnings per share should be presented in financial statements. First, entities must disclose EPS numbers along with comparatives in the statement of comprehensive income. And if a separate profit and loss statement is provided, the EPS figure should be presented there instead. And for discontinued operations, both basic EPS or BEPS and diluted EPS or DEPS may be shown either on the statement of comprehensive income or in the notes. And this ensures transparency in financial reporting and helps stakeholders make informed decisions. Okay, now let's discuss the additional disclosure requirements related to earnings per share or EPS. Numerators used in EPS calculations, including a reconciliation to reported profit or loss. The weighted average number of ordinary shares used in calculations. Details on potentially dilutive instruments that were not included in the calculation. And a description of transactions occurring after the reporting period that called impact EPS calculations, such as the issue or redemption of shares. This disclosure ensures that investors and stakeholders have a clear understanding of how EPS calculated and any factors that may influence it. Okay, to wrap up, let's summarize the key points about earnings per share or EPS. EPS is a critical financial metric that measures a company's profitability by showing how much net profit is allocated to each common share. It helps investors assess a company's financial performance and compare it with industry peers. Okay, under IAS 33, companies must report two types of EPS. First, basic EPS. This calculates earnings per share based only on outstanding common shares. And the last one, diluted EPS. This adjusts for potential dilution from financial instruments, like stock options, convertible bonds, or warrants that could increase the number of shares. Understanding EPS helps investors make informed decisions by evaluating a company's profitability and potential share value. Okay, this is a formula for BEPS, earnings per share equal net income minus preferred dividends divided weighted average number of shares outstanding. It's a get earning per share. And for the formula DEPS, EPS equal net income minus preferred dividends divided by weighted average share outstanding. It's a basic EPS. And if we use the EPS, we minus to impact of convertibles and we minus impact of options, warrants, and other dilutive securities. Okay, this is our presentation. Thank you for attention.